Typically, we are harder on others than ourselves when it comes to bad habits. They can be annoyances like someone who starts cracking their knuckles right next to you, or a friend of yours who you love very much but who constantly drops the word like into like every other sentence. Hey, but you've got one too. Everyone has at least one bad habit that they can't shake. Or can they? Welcome to Wellcast. This week, we took another viewer suggestion from Frantic Cow, who wrote in asking for a video on breaking bad habits. So today, you guessed it, we're going to examine why it's so darn difficult to give up chowing down on junk food or chowing down on your fingernails. We've also got a 4-step method for overcoming your biggest vice. Are you ready? First and foremost, how do bad habits even form? Studies by the National Institute of Health point to 2 main reasons. The first reason is repetition. If you do something often enough, say you twirl your pencil during class, your brain decides it can stop wasting precious neurons thinking about it. So it checks out and goes on vacation. You could be twirling your pencil through AP English, Social Studies, Algebra, and Trig without even thinking about it. The other way bad habits are formed is through positive reinforcement, which sounds like a really good thing, but it can be dangerous. Let's talk about that energy drink that you insist on sucking back when you're up late studying. Gives you a nice boost of energy, and it helps you get through to the end of that mind-numbingly boring paper you're writing on Chaucer. But the reason why this kind of habit is hard to break is that a nice surge of energy at 11 p.m. is an enjoyable feeling. And enjoyable feelings usually result in your brain releasing dopamine. This is partly why people often crave things that aren't even enjoyable for them anymore. The brain is jonesing for dopamine. But don't worry, my habitual compadres. Human beings are pretty amazing at changing and adapting. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to obliterate that bad habit in 4 easy steps. Pause and print this sheet at watchwellcast.com. Step 1. Let's start at the very beginning. It's a very good place to start. Write down the bad habit you're trying to quit. Start simple. Choose just one. Step 2. Learn to avoid your triggers. Take some time to think about the things that really make you crave doing your bad habit. If biting your nails is your vice, your triggers might be that last-minute quiz. Oh no, I gotta pay my electric bill, or how much money do I have in my account for rent? List these triggers in section 2 of your worksheet. Next to these triggers, write a list of ways you can avoid them. For example, read your syllabus every week, or make sure that you plan for automatic deductions for your electric bill. Step 3, substitute your bad habits for not so bad habits. Basically, you want to teach your brain by repetition to learn a new habit. So, if you tend to bite your nails when you're stressed and alone in your living room, stock your refrigerator with carrots and celery so that you can reach for something else to chew on when you're stressed out. Write a substitution next to every trigger on section 3 of your worksheet. Step 4. Gather your army. You do not have to do this alone. Enlist your friends to help you defeat this bad habit. Start by telling them that you're planning on eliminating this bad habit, and you need their help. Just the simple act of letting them in on this battle that you're waging is a step in the right direction. Remember, your friends can be bodyguards. They'll stand between you and your brain. Tell them to police you. If they see you reaching for those nails to bite, give them the permission to remind you of your mission. Or even slap your hand. Whatever you want. All right, guys, let's recap. Today, you learned 4 steps for beating your bad habit. You decided which habit you wanted to kick. You figured out your triggers for this bad habit, and you decided on ways to avoid and replace these triggers with healthier alternatives. If all else fails, you learn to enlist your friends in the fight.
Tweet us at WatchWellcast, email us at watchwellcast@gmail.com, or leave a comment down below. We'll see you next time.
All right, friends and neighbors, good to see you today. It is Tuesday, July 29. How about it? We are here with the Bill Press Show in Washington, D.C., booming out to you from our studio on Capitol Hill on Free Speech TV. You got a satellite dish, DirecTV, you know where to find us. And worldwide on our video stream, youtube.com/TawkrTV. You know how to spell it? TawkrTV. In the news today, 3 weeks now into the war in Gaza, but no end in sight. Mounting pressure from the United States and the United Nations on Israel and Hamas to agree to a ceasefire. But Hamas refused. Israel did. Without both agreeing, the fighting continues. And Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu yesterday told the Israeli people they ought to be ready for a long haul because it's not going to be over until they've destroyed every last tunnel. Meanwhile, President Obama, an unusual video conference call yesterday with the EU leaders, which is leading to the EU finally today will announce some very tough sanctions of their own against Russia. And the United States says that we will up and toughen our own sanctions against Russia, add even more sanctions before the end of the week. There's a deal on the Veterans Administration. Senator Bernie Sanders and Congressman Jeff Miller, Republican from Florida, have reached an agreement. That bill to prop up the ailing Veterans Agency should be on the president's desk by the end of the week. They'll get that done today, but it still looks like no progress on solving the humanitarian crisis at the border. And the White House says, so what? We don't care what the New York Times says. We're not going to change our policy on marijuana. All of that you want to talk about, so give us a call at 866-55-PRESS this Tuesday morning. Good to have you with us.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Sometimes when I'm walking down the street, I'm not necessarily looking out and seeing all these water-wasting lawns and people that aren't as connected to their neighbors and their lives as they could be. I'm walking down the street looking, going, edible oases, rainwater-fed landscape, and just looking at the possibility of these sort of landscapes up and down the streets of neighborhoods and communities all across this world. Small actions do ripple and they add up and they have a cumulative impact. And so when you're building upon your small mindful actions, you have the confidence and the ability to take on something a little bit greater. So that could be nice. This, in the context of where we're at as a planet with climate change and these really big issues and people that are more disconnected and less skilled than ever, it becomes even more amazing and powerful how much of a solution this is to design these ecological gardens and to come together with shared vision and shared voice. There's never been a time where your choices have mattered more. Doing something as simple as us transforming a landscape creates a model that anybody could look at far and wide, and you're sharing food and connecting and building skills together in your own neighborhood. It's a richer way to live in normal times, but in the new normal of climate change and erratic weather and economic upheaval, it becomes essential. Whether it's me, you, Gandhi, Che, MLK, Willy Wonka, whoever, past, present, or future, the power of our daily actions is all that we have. And like our community said, give me a place to stand and a lever long enough and I'll move the world. And that's what those simple actions do. They move the world every day.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
3 weeks in, and the war in Gaza continues. No end in sight. Hey, good morning, everybody. What do you say? It is a Tuesday, July 29. So good to see you today, and welcome. Welcome to the Bill Press Show. We are your headquarters for knowing what's going on around the globe, around the country, and here in Washington, D.C. That's where you'll find us, right in the heart of the action on Capitol Hill, our studio just down the street from the United States Capitol building. And for the next 3 hours, we'll bring you up to date on all the news of the day. Most importantly, give you a chance to weigh in and tell us what you think about it all. Your opinions are worth every bit as much as ours. So let us hear from you on our toll-free line at 866-55-PRESS. Let us hear your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. We are here with you on your local progressive talk radio station. How lucky you are if you've got one. If not, your option is to download the app TuneIn, the TuneIn app. It's available everywhere, and it is free. And that way you can find us on the Progressive Voices channel, just like listening to the radio. And on the video, if you prefer to look in, not just listen in, you got that option on Free Speech TV all across this great country of ours, and on TawkrTV worldwide. Free Speech TV, of course, on the Dish Network, and DirecTV, and TawkrTV on YouTube, youtube.com/Tawker, TAWKRTV, which is all our way of saying we're there with you everywhere, in every way. No excuse you can't miss the show, and no excuse for not being with us for the next 3 hours. Peter Ogburn and Lisa Murphy help lead the team here at the Bill Press Show. Hello, guys.
Yo.
Hey, good morning.
Yo, is it? Alicia Cruz. She's there to take your calls at 866-55-PRESS and keeping us looking good as he can. Cyprian Bolding, our videographer, on the job as well. Peter, you did a story yesterday about Spider-Man.
Yes.
Spider-Man
in Times Square.
Punching a cop.
Yeah, that's right.
But it's true. You go to Times Square and you'll see Elmo is there, and usually different Disney characters. Mickey Mouse is there, and Spider-Man, and the tourists all want to have their pictures taken with them. And of course, what the people who have no talent other than putting on this costume, right?
Which, by the way, are unlicensed ratty costumes.
They are.
They don't look good.
No, they don't.
They're not even expensive costumes.
No, they really.
The Spider-Man guy just puts on a red sweatshirt and a ski mask.
Yeah. They look pretty hard. All of them. They've been wearing those costumes a long time. Yeah. But what they want, of course, is a handout, right? They're not allowed to. They're not allowed to tell you it'll cost you boom boom, right? But if you don't pay them something, and if you only pay them $1, then you're going to get a mouthful, right? Yeah. Okay. So that's what happened with the Spider-Man guy. Guy gave him $1. He gave him a lot of lip. The cop saw this, and they came over, and he punches the cop. David Letterman gives the full account of it last night.
What can we do that really is nothing and still make money? So now you go down there, and there are people dressed as kind of costumes. You know, they're not real costumes, but they're kind of costumes.
Kind of costumes.
And they bother people for money. Here, take my picture. Oh, good, there's a guy who kind of looks like a cartoon. Okay,
Right.
we'll take. And then they get money. And a guy in a Spider-Man suit was arrested because he punched a cop. Now, first of all, I don't think it was the real Spider-Man.
Oh, no.
I don't think it was the actual guy. And secondly, the guy in the Spider-Man suit thought he was punching a guy in a cop suit. So I don't know.
That's what happened.
That's why you need the whole lead in there.
So you can't entirely blame him. Right.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, now you never know, right? Because the guy did have a gun.
Yeah.
And a bag.
A really nice costume.
A really dedicated costumer.
All right, indeed. Lots coming up here today. Congressman Mark Pocan from Madison, Wisconsin will be here in studio with us. And, of course, it's Tuesday, so we will have Arthur Delaney from Huffington Post and Igor Volsky from Think Progress back to back. But first,
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. You mentioned Spider-Man.
Yes.
At Comic-Con over the weekend, which I've talked about a lot, but there's one more story coming out of there. Spider-Man was roaming the halls, someone dressed as Spider-Man. You know,
of course.
A lot of people dress up.
I mean, there were probably a lot of people dressed up as Spider-Man.
Well, there was one in particular, Daniel Radcliffe, actor, best known as Harry Potter.
Yeah.
He wanted to go see Comic-Con, but he knew that he couldn't walk around without some sort of disguise.
Very clever.
So he dressed up as Spider-Man. He put some pictures out on his Facebook page of him wearing the Spider-Man costume and lifting the hood up so that people can see, who he is. And then he put it back down so he can continue to walk around unnoticed.
Very clever.
He was at Comic-Con also promoting his new movie,
great
Porn.
young actor.
Yeah, right? Yeah. What a great idea if you want to get around and see stuff. Donald Sterling has been fighting the NBA in court to stop the $2 billion sale of his Los Angeles Clippers to Steve Ballmer, formerly of Microsoft. Yesterday, the judge came down in favor of the NBA, meaning that they can, in fact, sell the team to Steve Ballmer. That is it for Donald Sterling. He will not be owning the LA Clippers.
And Mrs. Sterling, of course, is part of that deal.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. So say hello to Steve Ballmer, the new head of the LA.
Well, but Sterling's attorneys say they're going to appeal.
I'm sure they will. I'm sure they will. And there's a great old story about country western singer George Jones that when his wife took away the keys to his car because he drank too much, he just hopped on his John Deere tractor and rode into town to get drunk. Well, that might have been the inspiration for Kenneth Welton of Greeley, Colorado. 53-year-old Welton hopped on his lawnmower to go bar hopping around town this past weekend. Turns out you can't do that. He was arrested and charged with a misdemeanor DUI charge for driving his riding lawnmower while drunk.
You think about that, man. You can get in a lot of trouble.
Not only is it a vehicle, it's a vehicle with large spinning blades.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah. Like, that's not, granted, it's not going very fast, but you can do a lot of damage.
It's not a good idea to drive under the influence of any vehicle whatsoever.
Especially a lawnmower.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. No update today on Lewinsky's on Clinton.
You got to spread those out. Those are so
breaking news.
Yeah, no, you got to spread those out.
No more breaking news on that. But we do want to pick up with a story we talked about yesterday, and this is sort of pot number 2 because the plot thickens a little bit on the pot story. We told you yesterday the New York Times really shaking things up when they came out with a full-page editorial. I've never seen anything like that in the New York Times, calling on Congress to lift the lid on pot, if you will, to lift the prohibition against pot, which I didn't realize has been in place for 44 years. And the other famous prohibition, of course, against alcohol was only in place for 13 years. It was such a bust that they finally lifted that and let states decide whether they were going to be able to sell alcohol or not, and where you could sell it, where you could buy it. whether it was going to be available 7 days a week or 6 days a week or whatever, and states certainly did that. The New York Times making the point that states are certainly ready to do the same with marijuana, that in fact 2 states, as we know, Colorado and Washington, have already legalized the possession of marijuana for small amounts for recreational use. 35 states. We said 34 yesterday in New York. Following the Times admitted that it got one wrong. They were one off. 35 states and the District of Columbia have moved to either have medical marijuana or to decriminalize, as we have in the district here, the use of marijuana. But the New York Times report makes the point that some states are reluctant to go as far as Colorado and Washington, even though the experiment, certainly in Colorado, has already proven to be an astounding success, raising much, much more in sales tax revenue and pot tourism than they ever thought would be even exceeded their expectations for what they could get in terms of new revenue. But again, back to the New York Times, they made the point that will hold some states back is the fact that federal law hasn't changed. So while the Obama administration may say, okay, we'll let Colorado and Washington basically break the law, we'll just look the other way, the next president, the next administration, Democrat or Republican, could say, no, we think marijuana is dangerous. We don't buy it, that it's more dangerous or less dangerous than alcohol. So we're going to go back and enforce the law, even in Colorado. That's why we need to get rid of the federal prohibitions, because states are really free to make their own decision. That having been said, at the briefing yesterday, I took this issue to Josh Earnest, press secretary, to see if maybe the Obama administration might take the clue and show some leadership on this issue. Here's my question.
Unusual editorial in the New York Times yesterday, I'm sure you saw, urging the lifting of the prohibition against, the federal prohibition against marijuana. What is the White House's position on that? Would you endorse that? It's been there for 44 years. Maybe too long, the time to change it?
Now, listen carefully here as Josh Earnest, speaking for the White House, tries to have it both ways on pot. No, we still think it's dangerous, but we're really not going to enforce the law.
Well, I did read the editorial yesterday, Bill. The administration's position on this issue has not changed. We remain committed to treating drug use as a public health issue, not just a criminal justice problem. In light of state laws that legalize the possession of small amounts of marijuana by adults in Colorado and Washington, the Department of Justice issued updated guidance last August to federal prosecutors in all states. That guidance reiterates that marijuana remains an illegal substance based on the laws that Congress has passed.
So it's still illegal, but he says, but at the same time, we don't have enough resources to enforce the law, and like everywhere, so if Colorado and Washington want to go a different direction, we'll sort of tolerate it. So then I said, okay, that means every state can do just like Colorado.
Does that mean that if other states follow Colorado and Washington, the administration would also give them a green light to go ahead and legalize marijuana without federal interference?
Maybe green light wasn't the best phrase, or maybe it was. Here's Josh.
Well, I'm not sure green light is the technical term that the Department of Justice has used. But in terms of the guidance that might be offered to those states, I'd refer you to the Department of Justice.
Blessing, or whatever word you want to use.
The Department of Justice issues guidance like that. So if there are other states that are contemplating these kinds of steps, you should check with the Department of Justice about it.
Several reporters said afterwards, nice try, Bill. But don't you think the White House, come on. Just get on with it, right? Take a stand. They want to, again, they're straddling the fence. They want to have it both ways. No, we still think it's dangerous, but we're really not going to enforce it. Then just accept the fact, first of all, accept federalism and let the states do what they want. Also accept the fact that not only has public opinion changed, but this medical science has changed on marijuana. It's never proven to be the gateway drug that everybody always, remember they always warned about reefer madness? It's crazy. It never happened. Now, part two, the New York Times is out today with another huge editorial on this, following up. They're on this case, man, talking about the injustice of marijuana arrests. Let me just give you a couple of numbers from here about how they say how police have just become obsessed now, tracking down people and making these arrests for just possession of small amounts of marijuana. In 1991, New York City, there were 800 marijuana arrests. In 2010, 59,000 in 1 year. That doesn't mean that many more people are smoking. It just means they're going out there, looking this and making these busts nationwide. Between 2001 and 2010, 8.2 million people arrested for possession. 9 out of 10 of them were simply possession of small amounts of marijuana. And according to the ACLU, this cost us $3.6 billion a year to track this down for absolutely nothing. It's just a total waste. And then where you get to the injustice part, that black people and white people use marijuana basically about the same percentage, right? And yet, in the number of arrests, black people are much more likely than whites to be arrested for marijuana offenses. In every state but Hawaii, that is true. Every state but Hawaii, that is true. In Iowa, for example, blacks in Iowa are 8.3 times more likely to be arrested. 8.3 times more likely to be arrested. Here in the District of Columbia, blacks 8%, 8 times more likely to be arrested than whites for possession of marijuana. Minnesota, 7.8 times more likely. Every state but Hawaii, imagine that. So, there's just so many reasons why this is going to do. I'm just disappointed that the president, he evolved on same-sex marriage. It's about time he evolved on marijuana, damn it.
Let me ask you this question. How do you think this is going to play into 2016? Do you think that it's possible for a candidate to come out and say, across the board, I agree with not necessarily legalization, but letting the states decide and have that be a winning issue?
Yeah, I'll tell you one thing. Hillary Clinton's not going to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe,
if they
maybe Bernie Sanders would.
Bernie would. But, if they were to say, we believe that the states can make this issue, we're not going to get involved. Look at what Colorado has done.
That's the answer.
Yeah.
Leave it up to the states.
Yeah.
Leave it up to the states.
You don't have to come out in full-throated defense of legalization.
Right. I think the American people are certainly ready for that. Don't you? 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
it can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job, and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand, and they don't get it, and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university? And,
people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Arthur Delaney coming up next here from Huffington Post. We're talking pot as a time to lift the prohibition. Vi calling from Donovan, Missouri. Hi, Vi. Good morning.
Hi, Bill.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make the comment that I have chronic acute pain from a congenital condition, and that if pot were legal in my state, I think I could maybe decrease my narcotic consumption, but I'd like to think maybe half.
I'll bet you could. So I don't know whether there's medical marijuana available in Missouri. Is there, Vi?
There is not.
Oh, my. Well, that it's one thing to let the states do what they want. Then it's another thing to convince the state legislatures to do the right thing. But first, the beginning is lift the federal prohibition. Then the states ought to take the lead. I'd like to see the day when all 50 states have medical marijuana, decriminalization, and legalization of pot.
This
it's coming.
Is the Bill Press Show.
So this is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Here we go. It's 33 minutes after the hour now on a Tuesday, June 29. Oh, let's make it July 29. It always happens. You know, summer, lose a month here, lose a month there. It is the Bill Press Show. We're brought to you today by the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, the good men and women of the Teamsters Union, under the leadership of President Jim Hoffa. We all live better because of their good work, and you can find out more about what they're up to at their website at teamster.org. It's a Tuesday. Halfway through the first hour, it's time for, oh, he's here, Arthur Delaney from Huffington Post, the champion of the middle class and working class Americans around the country, following those issues and following those issues, fighting the good fight, and bringing the good fight to the Bill Press Show every Tuesday. Hello, Arthur.
Hello. If it were June, I would cry. I hate summer.
Oh, really? So
yeah, I'm glad we're making progress. It's almost August. We're almost through this.
To be fair, it's hardly summer outside right now.
Yes, today. Marvelous.
We've got a polar vortex.
I know. I almost was
No
sorry
joke.
I wore
It's hoodie weather.
I know.
Totally.
I almost was sorry I wore a short sleeve shirt over here today. All right. Catching you up to date first of what we talked about for the first half hour, Arthur. The New York Times is calling for the Obama administration and the Congress to lift the federal prohibition on pot so that states could decide what they want to do. Is this something you could support?
Yes, the vaunted New York Times editorial page about 2 decades too late on this, but better late than never.
Well, they're ahead of the Congress and they're ahead of the administration.
It's shocking how insanely bad our policy on marijuana remains after all these years of locking people up for using a harmless plant to do mostly harmless things.
Have you ever partaken of this substance?
Of course.
All right.
What, today?
Haven't we all?
Today?
Not this morning. I mean, it's really early.
And did you inhale?
You have to inhale or it doesn't work.
That's, as President Obama said, that's the point.
Or as if you can also eat marijuana, but we don't have these pot shops around here yet making the candies that Maureen Dowd got so high on when she went to Colorado.
Or the brownies.
But you don't have to inhale. I misspoke. It was a Speako.
Congress has 2.5 more days before they head out of town. Are we going to see any action on the minimum wage?
I don't think so. Did you hear something?
No. I'm just chalking down going down.
No, they're banging out other stuff. They're doing VA reform. They're doing their highway bill. The Senate, the House, they're busy.
Nothing on the minimum wage. Nothing on extension of unemployment insurance.
Right. The question is, would the president maybe try to keep them in town instead of which he has the authority to do, instead of letting them go on their 5-week August recess, or as they call it, a district work period.
Right.
And that would to do with immigration, but I don't think so.
You know what? The president is not going to call on. But actually, he could call on Congress to stay, but that doesn't. He cannot order them to stay. The only people that could order them to stay are John Boehner and Harry Reid, and
I think they'll go.
They're not gonna do that. And exactly. Well, update on one other thing we started talking about last week. You previewed this last week. Huffington Post taking a look at the attitude of the American people about extending the weekend.
Well, what we asked them was, would you work 20% less for 20% less pay? And another way of phrasing that is, would you like a permanent 3-day weekend with a corresponding drop in income? And the result of this question I describe as America's overemployment rate. It is 16%. That may sound like a small number, but if we had 16% unemployment, people would be flipping out, and it would be a crisis. But overemployment is not considered a serious problem. I think that's just sort of an unexamined phenomenon that is.
Let me be sure I understand.
Problem.
So 16% say they would take less money for more weekend, less pay, more weekend, right?
Just more free time.
I'm surprised it's not higher. What the hell? Why are Americans, why do they want to work so much?
This hasn't been polled or studied or surveyed much, but there have been other private surveys that showed a higher result. There have been government surveys that showed a lower result. But I think it's a pretty high result. We're talking about 23 million people here, if you were to extrapolate this percentage onto the workforce. But our poll, it's a little contradictory. We also found that 50% of people would be happy to work more for more pay. It's an understudied thing, but I think it merits discussion because if people worked less, there'd be more work to go around. Reducing overemployment would also reduce underemployment.
And maybe people should be given the option.
Yeah, and where do people think weekends came from?
You want to work 4 days a week, then you can be part of that team. You want to work 7 days a week, you can be part of that team.
Yeah, I could see that maybe work. That takes a lot of coordination, but yeah, sure, why not?
A thing is the fixed cost of health insurance. Employers would never get behind this with our health insurance policy the way it is today. How are you going to get somebody to maybe you could pay them less, but if you're still going to be insuring them, that's a fixed cost.
Yeah.
You don't reduce
that. Well, let's throw this out to our listeners and our viewers this morning here and see what you think about, would you be willing to take less money for more weekend? 866-55-PRESS. The other, let us know. I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
I would. The other question that we introduced last week, but I'm still wrestling with, I cannot make up my mind, is whether if I'm taking that extra day, whether that extra day is a Friday or Monday. That, to me, is the toughest one.
I maintain that you have to kill Monday. Friday can stay.
Friday can stay. So you work Friday and then come back on Tuesday.
Yeah, I mean, we can, gradually.
I'm not sure.
I'm Friday. I go Friday.
We'll have a cultural change toward hating Tuesdays.
but also, I would say you might have a cultural change towards loving Thursdays. You can embrace Thursday.
I already embraced Thursday.
Damn it.
I think I'm with you, Peter. I'm ready. By Thursday, I'm ready to head to the beach Friday morning.
Friday,
Thursday,
you just mail
Thursday
it in,
evening.
right?
Yeah, exactly.
Total goof day over here.
You've seen our, you mean,
I don't know what happens on Friday.
You've
here.
seen our Friday shows? All right. Arthur Delaney was from Huffington Post. If we want to know from you, would you be willing to work less and get a bigger weekend for less pay? 866-55-PRESS. There was a big experiment this week on the part of several prominent people in Washington. Congressman Keith Ellison, among them, who was in our studio at the end of last week, to live on the minimum wage for a week,
right?
Which turned out to be like $77, I think, for the week, or something.
Well, if you
like that, right?
you earn the minimum wage and work 40 hours, you'd get about $290, and 77 is what these raise the wage advocates estimate is what you'd have left over after you've paid your housing and your taxes.
Yeah,
so that's $77 for all your food, toilet paper, transportation, all these essentials.
And how did that? Did they make it? Did they survive?
Ted Strickland, the
former governor of Ohio.
Yes, he said, "I didn't make it."
Really?
He ran out of bologna on Wednesday, and by Thursday he was out of money. That's what he said. He wrote this for Politico magazine, and he also talked about how because transportation was something that he was walking in the 90-degree heat, making himself late for meetings. So it's hard having no money. It's not just that you get crappier stuff. You also have less freedom to decide what you want to do, what you want to eat. And that's something that people take for granted once you've got a middle-class income.
Sure. You know, I mean, the idea of having to stop, first of all, the idea of having a week diet of bologna.
Well, that's what he said. He was getting
It's
bread,
a long
banana.
time. A long time since I've had a bologna sandwich.
Yeah.
He spelled it bologna, which I don't understand.
Fancy.
This is it's sort of a stunt. It's similar to what Democrats did last year with food stamps. We're like, we're going to do a food stamp diet for a week, but this is more realistic.
You know what he did that a lot of people don't do is it's hard for people to get past the hurdle of food, right? Like it's all about food and buying groceries and things like that, but it really goes farther beyond that, like you said, transportation and clothing and things like that. It's not all about the grocery bill.
Mm-hmm. So we should get in touch with Keith Ellison and find out whether he was able to stretch to make it to last week. Arthur Delaney is here with us. We'll be right back looking for your calls about that long weekend we're all going to enjoy sooner than later, thanks to Arthur Delaney. When we come back, also, we talked last week, the big expectation about Paul Ryan and his big plan for ending poverty in this country. Paul Ryan style. How good is it? Arthur Delaney will tell us when we come back. Don't forget your calls at 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. The truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found in the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
13 minutes before the top of the hour, I just want everybody to understand that when we go to the 4-day work week, I want some credit for it. Okay.
Yeah.
Right? And Arthur, you deserve some credit for it because it started right here, the 4-day work week.
It did.
It's so French.
I'll take that credit.
It's so French, don't you think?
No, it's American.
This is good. This is good. You got to brand it the right way.
Shorter hours, priority of the labor movement for 100 years ago.
All right. Now, next, can we take the month of August off like they do in France?
Like they do? You mean like they do in Congress?
Like they do in Congress, yeah. No.
That would be fine. I would hibernate.
Yesterday I gave a little media training to some candidates running for Congress, about a dozen of them here. I told them I don't blame you for running for Congress. I salute you for it, and I want a job like yours. You're running for a job where you work like 100 days a year, and the rest of the time just kick back.
And people drive you around the whole time.
Yeah, and they get paid $175,000 for it. Arthur, Paul Ryan, we now know what his plan is to end poverty in this country. The Ryan plan, you talked about it last week.
Paul Ryan is back.
Paul Ryan is back. Is it worth paying any attention to? What did he come up with?
Absolutely. It's different.
What's different about it?
Well, the big thing is that Paul Ryan says this plan is not at all about cutting spending. He says he would maintain current federal spending at its current level, and that he would only want to change the way the programs work. And also, it's not a blanket policy that he would make everyone do. It's something that would start as a pilot program. So these are, I think, modest gestures of good faith by Paul Ryan. But there is a bunch of other stuff from this plan that Democrats are very focused on that is the same as Republican priorities from welfare reform, that even if it doesn't reduce federal spending now, constrains it so that it would never go up in the future. There are things like work requirements that people think are a total drag because they're effectively a way to kick people off welfare.
Well, Congresswoman Donna Edwards and Congressman Chris Van Hollen have both been on the show since Paul Ryan released his budget. And they say there's this big difference, though, between what Paul Ryan says about protecting these poverty programs and what his budget actually does, which is to cut every one of them.
I have been surprised that so many Democrats are saying that.
Is that true?
Yes, this is different. Totally different from the Paul Ryan budgets that we're all so familiar with that he's done for the past 5 years, where he just whacks the hell out of the safety net in order to keep the military spending going up.
But did he revise his budget, or did the Republicans revise their budget to reflect this new priority? Or did they still cut those programs?
What his office has said to me is that the budget is designed, the budget that he's always done have been designed to reflect what Republicans in the House of Representatives want to do. This new poverty thing is Paul Ryan himself. It's the product of his year during which, once a month he went to a poor neighborhood with a religious or neighborhood program operating in it, and he was trying to study how those programs work. So this is his personal proposal. And Democrats are saying, well, we don't trust you because you keep doing you've done these budgets for so long that we think that's all you really want to do. But I don't know. I think they should, if they don't like his new idea, attack it on the merits, which there are a lot of ways to do.
But where the rubber hits the road is the budget, right? Unless the budget changes, then his proposal is just a lot of hot air.
I don't understand it because the budget itself has always been a lot of hot air. It's never been designed as something to actually get through Congress. It's always been something that the House can sort of have show votes on that you never expect to be merged with a Democratic Senate bill and sent to the president's desk. So this I wouldn't describe as more of a show thing than those budgets. They're both launching pads for Paul Ryan, of course, who is now about to go on a book tour, having finished his poverty tour.
Yeah, poverty tour, then the book tour, and then the candidate tour probably coming up next. Just about a minute left. I have to ask you about another issue, which I think you're giving Paul Ryan too much credit here, by the way. But we'll see how that turns out. The Veterans Administration, Senator Bernie Sanders and Congressman Jeff Miller announcing their compromise yesterday. I haven't seen all the details. From what you've seen, good plan?
Yeah, well, it's a compromise. Sanders wanted a certain number of billions of dollars. Jeff Miller, Veterans Affairs Chairman of the House, wanted a smaller number, and they met in the middle. They had the same framework all along, so it shouldn't be so shocking that a deal actually happened, but it is. And the idea is you're going to give veterans the ability to go outside the VA and pay for their care at private facilities.
Right. So if they're in a long line and they can't get an appointment, their option is they can see a private doc and Veterans
Just go,
Affairs.
We'll pay for it. We need you to get good care.
Which makes a lot of sense. I think it's a good...
It
sounds to me,
but
from
it
what I've heard.
costs money, though, and they figured out, okay, we're going to live with this amount of money it's going to cost.
What you said is true. It should not be shocking, but the fact that there have been so few compromises, so few deals on so many issues makes it shocking and also refreshing.
My colleague Sam Stein, who covered this for us yesterday, it blew his mind because we went into the weekend, it's dead, no VA reform, they're going to go out of town, and then it was back, and they were doing it, and it was bipartisan and bicameral.
I'll tell you, it takes a lot to blow Sam Stein's mind, too. We know that. Arthur, so good to see you today. You're in rare form. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in. All right, we'll see you next week. Arthur Delaney from Huffington Post, Igor Volsky in the next hour. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing down, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Okay, in the next hour, Igor Volsky from Think Progress, managing editor, here in studio with us. Peter?
There's a big profile on realclearpolitics.com about radio talk show host and sometimes appearing on TV, Laura Ingraham, and sort of what she's up to now. One of the things that she said is, quote, I'm keeping an open mind about running for office in the future. She does not rule out running for office herself. She's gotten involved in a lot of elections, particularly the one with Dave Bratt that unseated Eric Cantor in Virginia. But yeah, she says she's open to running herself.
Well, let's see. Keith Ellison,
former talk show
host. Our good friend from Kentucky,
John Yarmouth,
former talk show host. So, but I think it would be tough for Laura, whom I know well, to be one of 435 members of Congress.
Good point.
Don't you think? You know, there's a difference between being your own boss and being your own voice.
Doesn't play well with others.
And she probably has more influence on talk radio than she does within the Congress.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
All right, friends and neighbors, good to see you today. It is Tuesday, July 29. How about it? We are here with the Bill Press Show in Washington, D.C., booming out to you from our studio on Capitol Hill on Free Speech TV. You got a satellite dish, DirecTV, you know where to find us. And worldwide on our video stream, youtube.com/TawkrTV. You know how to spell it? TAWKRTV. In the news today, 3 weeks now into the war in Gaza, but no end in sight. Mounting pressure from the United States and the United Nations on Israel and Hamas to agree to a ceasefire. But Hamas refused. Israel did. Without both agreeing, the fighting continues. And Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu yesterday told the Israeli people they ought to be ready for a long haul because it's not going to be over until they've destroyed every last tunnel. Meanwhile, President Obama, an unusual video conference call yesterday with the EU leaders, which is leading to the EU finally today will announce some very tough sanctions of their own against Russia. And the United States says that we will up and toughen our own sanctions against Russia, add even more sanctions before the end of the week. There's a deal on the Veterans Administration. Senator Bernie Sanders and Congressman Jeff Miller, Republican from Florida, have reached an agreement. That bill to prop up the ailing Veterans Agency should be on the president's desk by the end of the week. They'll get that done today, but it still looks like no progress on solving the humanitarian crisis at the border. And the White House says, so what? We don't care what the New York Times says. We're not going to change our policy on marijuana. All of that you want to talk about, so give us a call at 866-55-PRESS this Tuesday morning. Good to have you with us.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Just this month, my bill was like $138.
Even at one phone call a week cost me $40 to $50 every month.
I am living on a fixed income of SSI, so this is really a great hardship. Families are being punished. When they incarcerate their children, they incarcerate the whole family.
In 2011, the Media Action Grassroots Network, Working Narratives, and Prison Legal News founded the Campaign for Prison Phone Justice, an effort to call on the FCC to address the cost of interstate phone calls. The campaign mobilized prisoners to send hundreds of letters. Advocates and families filled out postcards, met with elected officials, and signed petitions. Partnerships were formed across the political spectrum and with groups in the criminal justice, civil rights, and public interest community. The film distribution company Participant Media and director Ava DuVernay joined the fight through a social action campaign tied to the release of the feature film Middle of Nowhere. In an effort to push the FCC to act, the campaign hosted a historic rally outside of the Federal Communications Commission where for the first time, families of prisoners, elected officials, civil rights and faith leaders came together to call for an end to predatory phone rates.
We're all held captive when predatory phone companies gouge our families.
My son has been incarcerated now for over 10 years, and my husband estimates that in the time we spent over $25,000 on prison phone calls.
My hero's not yours, you probably arrested them. Your schools probably neglected them. They spawn thoughts, you probably infected them. Feed us what you feed us, you can lay us next to them. FBI call it major crimes. Babies making babies cry.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
Congress has 2.5 days left before they go off for a 5-week vacation. Do you think they'll get anything done this week? Don't hold your breath. Hey, what do you say, folks? Great to see you on a Tuesday, July 29, the Bill Press Show. Booming out to you from our nation's capital and our studio on Capitol Hill, right in the heart of the action here. We're just down the street from the United States Capitol building, where Congressman Mark Pocan will stop by on his way to work in the next hour. So good to see you today, and get ready to tackle the big stories of the day here in our nation's capital, around the country, around the globe, and get ready to give us a call and tell us what you think about it all at 866-55-PRESS. That's our toll-free number. You can also send us your acid comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. It's a Tuesday. You can't get through a Tuesday without Arthur Delaney, the earliest hour, and then Igor Volsky kicking off this hour, managing editor.
Oh, my goodness.
Not the thinking editor.
No,
the managing editor.
There's not a lot of
things for it.
Progress, right.
Good morning.
God. Igor, nice to see you.
I haven't been here a week. You forget my entire title. That's fine.
That's what it is.
That's okay.
Out of sight.
Yeah, clearly.
You part of the team by now, of course, a team led by Peter Ogburn and Lisa Murphy. Hello, guys.
Hey, good morning.
Alicia Cruz, also a loyal member of the team here, taking your calls at 866-55-PRESS. And you wouldn't be able to see us on Free Speech TV or TawkrTV if it weren't for Cyprian Bolding, our videographer. So we're always nice to Cyprian. Otherwise, he just...
I brought him donuts.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, you brought him?
Yeah, well, I have to be nice to him.
That's a good idea.
He makes me look good.
Cyprian didn't tell Bill that his hair is sticking up like a rooster right now, so that's the problem when you don't bring him donuts.
Cyprian gets pissed off. He just turns off the lights and walks out.
He's done it.
No, indeed.
He's done it.
Well, I know you were a little under the weather last week, and I hope you're back and
Much
better.
better now.
But so David Letterman has some advice for you. You probably didn't know this, but if you had known this, you might not have gotten sick. Here's how diseases are spread. David Letterman helps us out.
According to the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, the largest single transmission of deadly germs is handshakes. Handshakes is where the deadly germs are transmitted. You're lucky you're in New York, because the most popular form of greeting here in New York is not the handshake, it's the middle finger. Middle finger.
Right.
And that way you don't, no contact, no touch and everything, no transmission.
Well, during flu season, I just do the chest bump.
Oh, there you go, yeah.
As a way to avoid any kind of sickness.
I'm going to take that on. It's good to see you, Igor.
Oh, my. Salty this morning.
No, but I saw a story the other day, yesterday somewhere, that the fist bump is really a lot healthier than the handshake.
It?
Yeah.
Yes, there was a big story yesterday.
Yeah, right. Now we know.
Keith Ellison, Congressman Keith Ellison, he's a fist bump guy. He came in
he does do the fist bump.
weekend. Oh, fist bumps all around.
Now we know why.
Yeah.
Trying to stay healthy.
Clean, yeah.
Little did we know. Igor here for the first half hour. Congressman Mark Pocan coming up in the next hour. He'll be in studio with us. I'll talk to him about that big Virginia ruling overturning Virginia's ban on same-sex marriage yesterday. And we'll also be talking a little bit later this hour with a head of the Center for Responsive Politics about all the new super PACs and the big money in politics. Igor and I get to the news of the day. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Last night in Texas, Derek Jeter and the New York Yankees lost. However, Derek Jeter did get a couple of hits, which moves him into 7th place on the all-time career hits list. He passed Carl Yastrzemski, who had 3,419. Jeter, 3,420. Now, again, they lost, so he was a little reserved in his emotion afterwards. Next on the list is Honus Wagner. He has 3,430, so it's possible that Jeter could get there this season.
The steroids.
Jeter's one of the guys who has, for the most part, managed to avoid steroid scandal. I'll give him that. He's 40 years old, which he ain't a spring chicken in baseball terms. This is his last season. He's retired after this. So.
Yeah. I'm glad you said he's managed to avoid the steroids scandal, not that he's managed to avoid the steroids.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Hilton Hotels is completely changing the game when it comes to hotel room keys.
Oh.
They are investing $550 million to turn your smartphone into your hotel key. And what they're doing is they're eliminating the whole check-in process altogether. You get your hotel room. They send it to you through an app, your room number and your key.
Very
you walk
smart.
into the hotel. You use your phone, boom, open your door, and you're in.
Wow.
Very smart.
We're visiting friends this weekend, and they just bought a house, and the lock is an iPhone lock. We'll get there early. They'll just send something to our phone. We'll be able to open the door and go through their stuff when they're not there.
Whoa, they already have that at their house?
They already have that at their house.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
But that's the whole movement.
They tell you where they keep the silver?
Oh, we'll find out. We'll find out.
I hope you can't hack something
you know
like
what?
that. That's scary.
I went over to National Airport the other day and signed up for pre-check.
There you go.
And I've used my phone now for a few times for checking into flights. It is so
It's the
simple. It's absolutely the best.
Yeah,
No more
I love
paper, no nothing. Just put your phone on. Yeah.
I love it. And yesterday, the president welcomed the National Medal of Arts recipient winners, including Diane Rehm from here in Washington, D.C., an NPR radio talk show host, and performer Linda Ronstadt.
Absolutely, Linda.
Before the ceremony, the president leaned over and whispered something to Linda Ronstadt. And, of course, when he was speaking, he confessed that what he told her is, quote, I told Linda Ronstadt I had a crush on her back in the day. So clearly he's a fan.
Yeah.
One.
Well, Michelle wasn't around.
Yeah.
Good for Linda. It's so sad with Parkinson's disease. She can't sing today anymore, and she's got incredible voice and a wonderful person, a good friend of mine. Thank you, Peter. I mentioned, Igor, this Virginia ruling yesterday. This is there are 19 states, by my last count, and I've got a column about this in the Hill this morning, that have now actually recognized the legality of marriage equality, same-sex unions. The Virginia thing will be appealed probably, but the courts in state after state after state after state are just overturning these constitutional bans.
Well, it's 29 decisions now since the Supreme Court overturned that section of DOMA, Section 3, which said the federal government can't recognize same-sex couples. And the Virginia case is very significant because this, of course, was the heart of the Confederacy. And in the language of their opinion, this 3-judge panel brought up the word segregation.
Yeah.
That not only does this infringe on the fundamental rights of gay couples to get married, but it also segregates them from the rest of society. They talked about Loving versus Virginia, the groundbreaking case that outlawed bans on interracial marriage and said that everyone should have the right to marry regardless of race or gender.
Yeah, they said you can no sooner defend the ban on same-sex marriage than you could defend segregation today, which really raises it to an incredible level in terms of policy, and I guess gives new meaning to the phrase Virginia's for lovers.
Yes, redefined completely. And this is the Second Circuit Court, the Fourth Circuit Court that ruled in favor of marriage equality. I believe the 10th Circuit ruled earlier this year. And the challenge, of course, will eventually go to the Supreme Court, where the case could be decided as early as next year. And it's very exciting for me because a friend of mine is clerking for a justice in the court next year, and he's also gay, and maybe he'll be able to take part in that opinion.
For the Supreme Court.
For the Supreme
Do you
Court,
know who will he clerk for?
For Ginsburg.
Oh, for Ginsburg.
Yes.
Yeah, so he'll certainly be on the right side of the issue.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
No,
he will left side, but yes, the right side, which is the
correct side of the issue, right? But what's fascinating to me is, and stunning, how fast this issue has moved. It was only 10 years ago, 2004, when George Bush was up for re-election, that the strategy for the Republican Party at the time to motivate the base and get the base out was to put 11 constitutional amendments on the ballots in 11 different states to say marriage can only be between one man and one woman. So here we are 10 years later, and courts after courts after court are striking those down. They all passed. They're striking them down as unconstitutional.
And the position of the Democratic Party in 2004 was to talk about civil unions, which now sounds like a completely arcane position.
Yeah, I mean, who would even think or accept or propose, oh, we'll give you a civil union?
Well, maybe Mark Pryor, but that's really it.
Yeah, right.
They're not all gone.
No. So how long do you think before all 50 states?
Well, I think it's probably going to take the Supreme Court. Certainly you have states like North Carolina, South Carolina, Alabama. You're not going to probably see too much action there. Although, surprisingly, states like Oklahoma have had favorable court rulings, although I believe there's a stay on those. It's going to come, I think, sooner than, as we've seen, sooner than anyone could have anticipated.
Just a point on North Carolina. Yesterday, in North Carolina, the Attorney General said that he believes there's no way North Carolina's ban could be upheld now in light of the Virginia decision, and therefore he will not enforce the ban in North Carolina.
Well, I think that he's not going to
defend it.
Not going to defend it anymore and let the Supreme Court take the reins.
So the times, they are a-changing. The times have changed, indeed, a lot. One thing that hasn't changed is that House Republicans haven't given up following Sarah Palin's lead on talking about impeaching President Obama's Steve Scalise. You can tell us the new majority whip made his first appearance on Fox News Sunday.
And it was really startling. He was asked 3 different times, is impeachment off the table? Scalise, a Tea Party favorite, the first Tea Party member to really become part of leadership since 2010, so really a big deal. In his first national TV appearance, refused to say 3 times that it was off the table and blamed the president for bringing up the possibility. Of course, the administration's all very excited about this. They are raising money from all of this talk that really started with Sarah Palin. Now, few Republicans, establishment Republicans, to their credit, have endorsed the idea. Boehner, the speaker, has said time and time again he's not going to pursue impeachment. He's going to pursue the lawsuit, but he's not going to pursue impeachment. And Democrats have been managed over the weekend. Just in online contributions have raised $2.1 million. After Sarah Palin made her remarks on Breitbart, I think it was back in June or earlier in July, they raised $500,000 overnight just from that. So they're seeing this as a way to really rally the base and to say to the broader American public, hey, look, you guys are fed up with Washington. The Congress won't do anything. All they're doing is talking about impeachment and suing the president. So it's a great way to kind of gin up support and build up enthusiasm going into these midterms.
So Republicans are using this to rally their base, and Democrats are using it to rally their base.
Don't you love D.C.?
I'm just going to say this makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah, meanwhile,
both of them are just wasting their time on something that's probably not going to happen. Well, not hope, not going to happen. The other thing that I love about this discussion is I have yet to hear one high crime or misdemeanor identified as worth impeaching or which merits impeachment. It's just the word impeachment, but never making the case for he did this.
Well, they talk a lot about the Supreme Court pushback on some of the executive authority, the recess appointments, and so on and so forth.
Hardly a high crime.
That's part of kind of the larger narrative of a lawless president that they try to make.
All right. Meanwhile, Think Progress. Igor sent a couple of his intrepid reporters down to the border to walk the border with Ted Cruz, of all people. What did they find? I thought Ted Cruz would be walking the northern border.
That's right.
I mean, he was
right.
Right. He could show them where he came in from Canada. We'll find out.
They give tours of that now.
Right. We'll find out the latest from the border and other issues with Igor Volsky from Think Progress. Don't forget, we'll always find a room for you at the table, chair for table for you at 866-55-PRESS. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand and they don't get it and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university?
Yeah, people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
is the Bill Press Show.
25 minutes after the hour. Yes, when we come back, we're going to talk politics with Kyle Kondik from the University of Virginia Center for Politics. Works with Larry Sabato down there. Igor Volsky is with us, managing editor of Think Progress here. Igor, tell us about this border visit.
Well, we sent 2 reporters down to the border to really kind of get a sense of the situation. It was during the time when Glenn Beck and Ted Cruz and Louis Gohmert all went down there as part of this larger campaign.
The teddy bear patrol,
giveaway,
right?
Yeah. To show that, they have all these humanitarian concerns about the kids and they really care about the kids. Of course, they want to send them back right away. And we just had some kind of interesting conversations with the people who do all the heavy lifting there, and that is processing the kids, sheltering the kids, housing them, listening to them, kind of, acting as surrogate parents for these thousands and thousands of very young children who cross the border unaccompanied, of course. And had some really kind of moving, heartfelt stories of religious organizations like Catholic Charities, for instance, filling the great void of the government being not overrun, but really unprepared for this crisis, despite, as we now know, kind of multiple warnings that were run up the flagpole saying this is an increasing problem. Starting in, 2012, they don't have enough shelters, they don't have enough space, and so nonprofits and religious organizations are really filling that need. And now, of course, the big question is, how do you process these children? How do you make sure that everybody gets a fair asylum hearing before a judge when the regular average wait bill is 537 days, I believe, to get your day in court? And so the Center for American Progress.
Come back to these. You're talking children. You're talking,
very
as
young children.
As 6, 7, 8 years old.
The good news, if there is any in this story, is about 87% of the children who come through are housed with family eventually, often extended family, but they are found a home. And then, of course, it's the challenge of making sure they get that court date, making sure they have a lawyer to argue on their behalf. They show up. Yes. And so it's a question of how do you reform the system? And the big debate, of course, is this 2008 Bush-era anti-trafficking law, with Democrats and now the Center coming out with a report saying that there is enough flexibility within the law to allow for faster processing, that you don't need to change it. And Republicans, of course, saying that we need to kind of gut it all together and treat these children who are coming in because the violence is so high, the same as kids from Mexico, and send them back as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and it looks like more and more, and I talked to several members of Congress last night at an event, that they're going to leave this week without doing anything about it.
Oh, they're not going to do anything, it looks like.
Yeah. Nothing.
Yeah, the Tea Party wants smaller and smaller bills, so there's not going to be any room for consensus.
Right. So 57,000 children at the border. We're going home on vacation. Who cares? We care. The American people care. Igor Volsky cares, and he's here with us. Thank you, Igor.
Thank you. Is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
him!
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
Here we go at 33 minutes after the hour on Tuesday, July 29. We're coming to you live from our nation's capital, our studio on Capitol Hill, brought to you today by the United Steelworkers and their international president, the one and only, colorful, outspoken Leo Gerard. The United Steelworkers, he's leading the United Steelworkers, North America's largest industrial union, representing 1.2 million active and retired members. And you can find out about their good work at their website, usw.org. A big political year, of course, midterm elections. Congress is so focused on that, they are about to leave town for 5 weeks to, devote their time to what's uppermost on their mind, which is getting reelected. Following all of the 2014 races, our good friends down at the Center for Politics at the University of Virginia. Larry Sabato heads that up, and the managing editor of Crystal Ball, Kyle Kondik, right? Kondik, sorry, joining us in studio today. Hey, Kyle, nice to see you.
Thanks for having me.
This is, a lot of people, I find all the speculation about 2016, and I keep telling people, hey, focus on 2014. Because 2014 is going to have a huge impact on whatever happens in 2016, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, control of the Senate is at stake, and also there are a lot of governors' races across the country too. That in some ways may be more important than the race for the Senate, because look, I mean, I think that. Right now, the best guess is that maybe the winning side for the Senate's going to have maybe a maximum, 51, 52 seats on one side or the other. The Senate can't get much done now, and the House is going to stay Republican. President Obama is going to stay in the White House. So what exactly can you do? But maybe on the state level, a lot of these governor's races may actually, affect more people over the next couple of years.
Are there 30? Every member of the House is up for re-election,
Yep.
or every seat is up. So 435. Then 36 Senate seats.
Yeah, there's 33 and then 3 special Senate elections. Yeah.
And governor's races, do you remember?
I think it's 36.
It's close, 34, 36, something like that,
Most
isn't
of the
it?
states elect their governors in the off year. There's just a handful they do in the presidential year. But, a lot of big states, Florida, for instance, has a really competitive toss-up governor's race this year. Rick Scott, the Republican incumbent, is running against Charlie Crist, who, of course, was a Republican, then an independent, and now is a Democrat. Some of the other big states like California and New York, Democrats easily going to get reelected there. But between Florida and some states in the Midwest, even Democrats seem to have a chance to win the governorship in a place like Kansas. Republicans have a chance in Hawaii. It's just kind of a weird thing, and it doesn't necessarily conform to generally what you think of the partisan lean of those states.
Yeah. Well, so let's start with the Senate, because I agree with you. It looks like that the House is going to stay.
Sure.
Democrats may pick up a few seats, but the House will stay. The Democrats would need to win 17.
17 seats. And just to put it in historical perspective, if you go back to all the midterms since the Civil War, the president's party's lost ground in the House in 35 of 38 midterms since the Civil War. So generally speaking, the president's party loses seats in the House for a number of reasons. But of course, the 2 exceptions to that were Bill Clinton in 1998. Democrats won a few seats. And then George Bush and the Republicans in 2002. So there is recent precedent for the president's party to gain seats in the House, but 17 is there's really no historical precedent for that.
So unless there's a big wave of some reason, we don't see that.
It would take something to happen that hasn't happened yet, basically.
Right. Yeah. So let's say the House stays where it is. Then the Senate. If you had to call it today, is it possible to call the Senate? It's going to flip to Republican control or stay in Democratic control?
I don't think it is, and maybe that's kind of a cop-out.
You don't think it's going to flip? Or possible to call?
I think it's too hard to call at this point.
Got it.
I think it's I would say it's kind of a 50-50, maybe 55-45 Republican chances of taking the Senate, but it's very close. The problem for Democrats primarily is that this is just a really tough map for them. There are 7 seats they're defending in states that Mitt Romney won. Republicans aren't really defending any. There's only 1 seat that they hold that Barack Obama won. It's Susan Collins in Maine. She's going to win easily. So the playing field is almost entirely Democratic seats, and you think about it, the Senate's cyclical, and every group of seats is up every 6 years. This map was last contested in 2008. Of course, that was a very good year to be a Democrat. This isn't going to be as good of a year to be a Democrat, and so that's part of it. I mean, people are going to draw all sorts of conclusions from what happens, but again, if the map looked different, the conclusions would be different essentially, and so I would. What I'm saying is, I wouldn't necessarily take this as a referendum on what's going on in the country overall.
What's ironic about that is, from what I've read, is that 2016 it'll actually be more advantageous for
That's right.
Democrats.
And again, think about that map was contested 6 years prior, which was 2010, which of course a very good Republican year. And so I think the Republicans probably actually have to run up the score on this Senate map, maybe get to 52, 53, 54 seats. Of course, they need 6 to get to 51 in order to sort of protect themselves from good Democratic opportunities in 2016.
Right. So let's look at some of those Senate seats. I guess overall, we started out this year where most the political commentators that I follow, right, were all saying, "Oh, it's in the cards. Republicans are going to take over the Senate." I don't hear that so much anymore. Most people that I hear, Charlie Cook and yourself, saying it could go either way. It's basically 50-50 at this point.
Yeah, and I think that's right, and that is pretty much the consensus view. And also, there seems to be this kind of growing, I wouldn't necessarily call it a consensus view, but I think a lot of observers have made this point in the last couple of weeks that there's not an obvious sign of what you would consider to be a Republican wave.
Yeah.
For instance, there's one measure of this that's it's a national poll, the House generic ballot, which essentially just asks people in your House district, you're going to support the Democratic or Republican candidate. By this time in 2010, the Republicans already had like a 3-point lead in those polls. And right now, Democrats actually lead that number by about 1 or 2 points given given the poll. Now, that's also a poll that, for whatever reason, generally leans towards Democrats. So the real number is probably, Republicans with a tiny advantage. But the point is that by 2010, through that House generic poll, you could already tell that there was going to be, a Republican wave at that point. That's not really where we are. I think that the the president's approval rating's not that great, but the Republicans aren't all that well liked either. And so you wonder if this is going to be almost kind of a malaise kind of election in which maybe Republicans do okay in the Senate, but it's not going to be some sort of huge mandate for them.
So, as managing editor of the Crystal Ball, when you look into the crystal ball, it's a little murky.
It's a little murky. Yeah, I think it's safe to say though that the next Senate majority is going to be pretty small.
Yeah,
I don't think we should. The Democrats have 55 seats right now.
Let's take a look at some of the more colorful races, shall we say? Starting in Kentucky with Republican leader Mitch McConnell. He's got a real challenge.
Yeah, and McConnell, just like Harry Reid 4 years ago, as the minority leader, he's very unpopular. McConnell, his numbers are underwater. His approval is lower than his disapproval. That said, it's really difficult. I think it's hard to imagine McConnell losing, just because it's a Republican state at the federal level in what is probably going to be at least a modestly Republican year. There was a big poll that came out in Kentucky yesterday. McConnell was up by 2 points, which of course is not a lot, particularly for the Senate minority leader. I think McConnell probably hold on, but I know Democrats would be, extremely excited to beat him. And if you knock out McConnell, that makes the Republicans' road to the majority difficult because the Republicans aren't expecting to lose any seats.
Right. Right. And that would be sort of a Tom Daschle moment, right? When you have the leader of the party. I've been kind of thinking about this in the wake of Eric Cantor losing last month. In that, I think historically, it's been a net plus for politicians to be in leadership, to have a committee chairmanship, or to be the majority leader, the minority leader. Maybe not so much anymore.
Maybe not. I mean, I don't think Eric Cantor would have lost if he was just a regular congressman. And I don't think Harry Reid would have had the troubles he had in 2010, and I don't think McConnell would have had would be having his problems, because people don't like Washington, but I think they have a hard time connecting their representative or their senator to what's going on. But it's easy to do that when that person is your person and he or she is the leader.
Yeah.
So
they've got a big bullseye on their back.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. North Carolina, where Kay Hagan may be the Democrat with the toughest race. Would you agree?
Well, actually not. I think she's doing okay.
Really?
Yeah. I think the Democrats are in greater chance of losing maybe states like Arkansas or Louisiana.
Yeah, I want to get to those.
Okay. But in North Carolina, Kay Hagan's numbers are not very good. Her approval is lower than her disapproval. But her opponent, Tom Tillis, who's the Speaker of the State House down there, has had all sorts of problems himself. State House is pretty unpopular, and his numbers are very bad. And so it looks like Hagan is actually leading. There's also a Libertarian in the race who's polling at close to 10%. That'll probably taper off, but if he takes 5% or so, that may come a little bit more from the Tillis camp, which would help Hagan maybe win with less than 50%.
Yeah. There's one other factor here, which you probably haven't been able to account for yet, which is that next Monday I'm going to be in Asheville, North Carolina,
there you go.
with the 880, the revolution down there for the big the moral majority movement, which started in Raleigh, and now during the legislative break, I think they do rallies all around the state, and having a big one in Asheville. I'll be down there on 880, the revolution. Next Monday afternoon. So, after I make my appearance,
turning the tide, right?
Turning the tide, indeed. Kyle Kondik is here with us from the Center for Politics at the University of Virginia, taking a look at the hot Senate races. One in your state or governor's race that you want to talk about, give us a call at 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
Yeah, I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. The truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found in the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
12 minutes before the top of the hour, Congressman Mark Pocan from Wisconsin here in studio with us in the next hour. Right now we're surveying the political landscape here with one who knows it very well from the Center for Politics at the University of Virginia, Kyle Kondik. Partner of Larry Sabato. You've heard and seen Larry here many times on the program. Kyle, it's good to have you in studio here today. You mentioned Arkansas and Louisiana. Those are Senate races, and let's talk some governor's races. But those two are among the hardest fought, right?
Yeah, and of course, Arkansas and Louisiana are two states that gave Mitt Romney almost 60% of the vote in 2012. But there's still kind of Mark Pryor in Arkansas and Mary Landrieu in Louisiana are in some ways kind of legacy candidates. Landrieu's father was mayor of New Orleans. Mark Pryor's father, David, was actually a U.S. senator himself. And it harkens back to an earlier era of kind of more moderate to conservative Democrats from the South.
Mm-hmm.
One wonders if that trend is sort of going away, that they're sort of two of the last ones. But they're both very formidable. I think both those races are basically toss-ups.
What gives them a shot, I think, is that they are both phenomenal candidates.
Yeah,
right?
oh, absolutely.
Retail politics, they know.
You know, what's interesting about Pryor is that the Arkansas electorate is going to be majority evangelical Christian in the fall. And Pryor has done a lot of ads basically emphasizing his faith because he himself is evangelical. And I think, too, people on the East Coast, when they first saw these ads 6 months ago, they thought, oh, this is hokey and blah, blah, blah. But I think it was actually pretty effective for him. And particularly recently, Tom Cotton, who's a member of the U.S. House who's running against Pryor, actually made a comment that was sort of questioning Mark Pryor's faith, and it sort of blew up in his face because
I saw that.
it was just seen as a pretty major misstep. And so essentially Cotton is seen as maybe, let me make this comment about Cotton, like he ran for the House for the first time in 2012. And before he even got elected, people were saying, oh, he's going to run for president. I mean, he's like a real big star, rising star on the Republican side. But his Senate campaign has not been great, although he still has a perfectly decent chance to win down there.
Right. I do have to ask you, I do want to get into governor's race. I do have to ask you about Scott Brown, Jeanne Shaheen in New Hampshire. The
early reviews are not good for Brown in New Hampshire. And I think part of it is that everybody in New Hampshire, well, first of all, everybody in New Hampshire is totally plugged in politically. It's one of the most politically active states in the whole country.
Tell me about it. Yeah.
And also, New Hampshire gets a lot of Boston TV, and so they saw all the ads from the 2012 race. And Scott Brown is very well known for a challenger. I mean, there are very few people who are kind of undecided or don't have an opinion about him. And typically his favorable versus unfavorable rating is either about 50-50 or negative. And so how do you dig out of that if people already know you? And so basically Jeanne Shaheen has been up 10 points the whole race, and there's no indication that that's changing.
Now, I used to work for Governor Jerry Brown first time around.
Mm-hmm.
He's coasting in California, as you pointed out. So is Andrew Cuomo in New York.
Yep.
What about Florida?
So I do think that Rick Scott, the Republican, versus Charlie Crist, the Democrat, is basically a toss-up kind of race. It looks like Rick Scott has sort of rebounded a little bit, but part of it is that Rick Scott has a ton of money. The Republican Governors Association, which is the national arm that helps elect Republican governors, they have a lot more money than their Democratic counterpart, so they're going to be able to chip in a little bit more. And so what may prevent Crist from winning is essentially just sort of a resource imbalance. But I do think the Democrats are going to certainly target that race because, rightly or wrongly, obviously the governorship of Florida is very important, but also they see it as sort of important to have the governorship maybe going into the presidential election.
And Texas?
Looks like Greg Abbott, the Republican, is going to win. Wendy Davis, the Democrat, has gotten a lot of attention, but it's just too Republican of a state at this point. The demographics in Texas are changing, but probably not at a fast enough rate for this kind of race. Perhaps a more attractive future target for Democrats is Georgia, where the demographics are changing in a quicker way. Georgia may be part of the Electoral College map maybe as soon as 2016. I don't think Texas will.
All right. You mentioned Georgia. I should have asked you also about the Georgia Senate race.
Yeah, and I don't know if
quickly, but
I don't know if the demographic changes in Georgia are going to happen quick enough for Michelle Nunn, the Democrat, to win there. The governor's race is very competitive too. Jason Carter, grandson of the former president, is running as Democrat there.
Yes,
but I think both Republicans are still favored there.
Yeah. Jason Carter, I saw him. He looks so much like his grandfather. He does indeed. Hey, Kyle, it's great to meet you and great to have you in studio with us this morning. And with all these, we only got to maybe a third of them, so we'll have to have you back and go through all the rest.
Anytime.
Okay.
Anytime.
And I'll come back and tell you what the president's up to today on his schedule. Thanks again.
Thank you.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Okay, 2 hours almost gone. Third hour coming up. We lose you on Free Speech TV. Hey, their decision, not ours. Too bad about that. But you have an alternative, which is TawkrTV, our video stream. TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV. And you move over there, and in hour number 3, we're going to talk money, 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 big money in politics with a representative from the Center for Responsive Politics. And then Congressman Mark Pocan from Wisconsin here to talk about Virginia's big court decision yesterday on same-sex marriage. Hour number 3 coming up.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I probably would make a time machine. I would make medicine for the sick. I'd probably invent something new.
我会赢到5个总冠军戒指。
If I could have an extra 5 years to live.
You said 5, right?
5 years. It's a long time.
I would try to fix everything I did bad.
I would bring my uncle back because I miss him very much.
I would get more hamsters.
I would probably want to go looking for dark matter. I think I'd go looking for aliens. If I could live an extra 5 years.
I was thinking about making like a helicopter, like a wooden helicopter, but I don't have any wood.
I want to go check out the moon sometime. I'd probably teach my sister not to hate tuna. I would try and invent a machine that lets you run at light speed. If I had 5 more extra years to live,
I would be the boss of all the chipmunks.
eu cantaria na frente de 1 milhão de pessoas. I don't really know. I think I'd do anything. Why are you asking me that?
This is the Bill Press Show.
President Obama will be back on the road today, but first he's got a busy day at the White House after the daily briefing this morning. He will be meeting with a group of invited House Democrats to talk about jobs and economic issues in the Roosevelt Room of the White House. Then he goes out this afternoon to Bethesda, Maryland, and to Walter Reed National Military Medical Center, Walter Reed Hospital, to visit wounded warriors out there. Leaves Walter Reed to go direct to Andrews Air Force Base, and from Andrews Air Force Base out to Kansas City. He'll spend the night in Kansas City, and he's meeting tonight, having dinner tonight in Kansas City with some people who have written him letters, continuing this tradition they started a couple of weeks ago. In the next hour, we're going to talk big money in politics with the Center for Responsive Politics, and then Congressman Mark Pocan from Wisconsin here in studio with us. If you liked the first 2 hours, you're going to like hour number 3 even more. Stay tuned.
This is the Bill Press Show.
I'm a Piston fan.
Their slogan was, "We come to work." That's what Detroit about. That's why they used it. It's a team thing. They won 2 championships, a team. There was no star. No mayor can come in here and be a star. It's a team thing. No governors can come in here and think you can do it by yourself. It's a team thing. You got communities. They got ideas too. The only thing wrong with Detroit, people have lost hope here. Residents, city workers, so much corruption, they lose hope. But I grew up here. I love this city. I think it can come back. I've been working for the city 24 and a half years. Within the last 10 years, we took 4 pay cuts, and then an additional 10% wage cut. I've lost a home.
When you take all of the decisions out of the city of Detroit, all of us, then what do you have? Exactly what we got, a lot of problems. Every time the city seems to fall into a problem, it's always on the backs of us workers.
You wake up out of a dead sleep and you jump behind the wheel and take off driving and try to get everybody there safe, not knowing really what you're pulling up to, not eligible for Social Security. So the pension is my sole salary at this point.
We've been in business here 39 years. We've seen a lot of changes in Detroit. The area was a lot of industry, a lot of city workers. It's getting very tough for the city workers. It's getting tough for us as a business people.
Response times are increasing because of the closing of companies, which takes your insurance rate through the roof. So all the things that affect us affect the citizens.
I worked for the city in different capacities for 29 years. I feel like an old jacket. They use me up and then throw me away. In my condition, nobody's gonna hire me. I'm 68 years old. Half the times, I can't get my blood pressure medicine. It's either feeding myself blood pressure or paying bills.
$754. By the time they take all the deductions for I have my car insurance, my house insurance, and my health insurance taken out. So the time they take all that, I'll get about $300 after they take all that out. I don't understand it. I can't see how the governor's allowing this to happen and what they're doing and they want to blame it all on the seniors. Not only the seniors, but the city workers. And we worked hard. I know I worked hard.
I've been in Detroit since 1946. I was 14 years old when I came in. I don't live large at all. I wish I could. I don't know when the last time I've been shopping. I only get $1,100, and I'm 81 years old, and I need every penny that I can get and that I do get. And I'm very, very upset about the idea of them taking away my pensions that I worked 30 years for. I think it's terrible that they talk about Detroit like they do, because Detroit has been very good to me.
I have a lot of city workers coming in with their uniforms on, Detroit Water Department, Police Department, Fire Department. I get a lot of people, the Border Patrol come in. So if I lose that customer base, I'm going to be in a position where I might have to close down. If they take away their pensions, if they start cutting jobs, it's going to cut into a large percentage of not only our business, but other businesses that are in the city of Detroit. We're here. We've been here for 26 years. We're still trying to do business in the city.
Detroiters are survivors. They tough. They adapt. But only can do so much when your politicians ahead of you and we're not on the same team. We're not going to let Detroit be erased, bulldozed to where. We're going to fight to the bitter end. Detroit going to survive.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Oh, you should pick that up. Oh, you're such a dork, loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look. Your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach your kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
On your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
Only 2.5 more days left before Congress takes off for 5 weeks, but what the hell? They might as well go today. They're not going to accomplish anything before the end of the week anyhow. Hello, everybody. Great to see you today on a Tuesday, July 29. It's the Bill Press Show. And we are coming to you from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, where we keep our eye on what's going on here in the Capitol at both ends of Pennsylvania Avenue, the Congress, and the White House. Keep an eye on what's happening around the country and around the globe. We'll tell you all about it, and you tell us what you think about what's going on by giving us a call at 866-55-PRESS. We got the team here this morning, Peter Ogburn and Lisa Murphy.
Hi there.
Hey. Hello.
Good morning.
A little excitement here going on. We'll tell you about it in just a second. Alicia Cruz is there to take your phone calls at 866-55-PRESS. And Cyprian Bolding, our videographer, keeping us looking good on our video stream at youtube.com/TawkrTV. We may be the only, I think we are the only people in our building at this time because there is a fire alarm going off, and the fire trucks have just pulled up out front. I just want you to know. So this may be the last time you see us or hear from us, but we want you to know that we died for a good cause.
True dedication.
Yeah, if we go down, at least we go down doing what we love.
We are going, that's right. We're going.
Put your headphones on.
We are going down with the ship. Right. Unlike the what was that?
Costa Concordia.
Costa Concordia. Yeah. This captain stays with the ship.
That's right. My man. Captain, my captain.
So technically, we are supposed to be out of the building on the sidewalk with everybody else, but we are defying orders and staying here. And
if the fire department shows up in the middle of the show, we may then have to leave. So you've all been warned.
Right.
In case we have to scoot, it's not because we want to; it's because we have to.
All right. So this is the essence of live television and live radio.
Oh man, nice knowing you.
Yeah. Nice knowing you, indeed. And we have Congressman. Well. Again, this depends on whether our guests are able to get in the burning building. The building's not burning. We have seen no signs of flame or smoke, which is why we feel it's safe to be here.
That's right. You, with a background as a
I'm
volunteer fireman.
By the way, I am also, that's right, a former volunteer fireman, so I'm prepared to take care of any emergency.
I feel like the safest man in D.C. right now. No matter what happens, I'm a fireman.
I myself can run super fast, so I'm prepared.
See there?
If he's able to get in the building, Congressman Mark Pocan will be joining us. And if she's able to get in the building, Sheila Krumholz from the Center for Responsive Politics will join us as well. So keep your fingers crossed for all of us. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Yes, indeed. Just a couple of other stories making news. Some good news, Bill, if you want to add some years to your life. A new study says that all you need to do is add 5 minutes per day of running. Running is all you need. You can add years to to your life. The study,
5 minutes?
5 minutes of running, you can add years to your life. The new study took a look at the exercise habit of more than 55,000 adults in the Dallas area. They were monitored for up to 22 years. It's a long study, and they looked at how these adults exercised and what they did. And they showed that those who just exercised, just ran 5 minutes a day, helped them out in the long term.
Whoa.
Oh, that's interesting.
So get a bacon double cheeseburger and then go run for 5 minutes. Boom.
Brought to you by Reebok.
Well, I want to, so that's 5 minutes. If you run for 10 or 15 or 30 minutes a day.
That'll kill you. No, that'll kill you.
Oh, okay. All right.
Don't do that. That'll kill you. Story of, speaking of Dallas, while we're in Dallas, there's a 13-year-old girl, Ariel Tollfree, fell asleep with her phone under her pillow. That phone caught fire while she was sleeping, burned a hole in her mattress. She woke up and smelled smoke. What happened was the lithium-ion battery inside of her phone was a replacement to the original phone's battery. It didn't cause any major damage. It did burn her mattress. Nothing actually caught on fire. But Samsung has swooped in. They gave her a new phone. No word on what kind of phone it was, by the way, that burned. But it wasn't a Samsung. They said they wanted to swoop in and help.
That's pretty scary.
There you go. And The Hill, one of your bosses, The Hill magazine, it's that time of year that they put out the 50 most beautiful people on the Hill working in Washington. And the list has a couple of recognizable names, including Rand Paul is on the list. S.E. Cupp from CNN is also on the list. A couple of congresspeople we know. Donna Edwards made it on there, along with Representative Tony Cardenas. And
Tony Cardenas has been in studio with us.
Cory Booker made it on the list for the first time.
Right.
Fox News' Brett Baier was also on the list. And Josh Earnest from the White House made it onto the list this year.
Oh, no kidding.
Bill, I'm sorry yet again.
Oh.
Neither one of us made it onto the list. I'm sorry.
Oh.
Not from the Bill Price Show.
You have to be nominated, I think. So,
yeah.
I guess nobody nominated us.
Oh.
Right. All right. By the way, Bob Cusack, who was managing editor of The Hill, a frequent guest on our show, is now, he's been promoted to editor-in-chief of The Hill. I hope we'll still be able to get him in with that highfalutin title now. You know, whoa! But congratulations to our good friend Bob Cusack.
Really
Thank you, Peter. Well, there is a big movement underway that put it this way: the New York Times trying to get a new movement started to end the prohibition on pot, which has existed now at the federal level for for 44 years. And the New York Times, on Sunday, had a full-page editorial saying this has gone on for too long. We should, by the way, the prohibition on alcohol only lasted 13 years. This is now 44 years that we should lift that and let states do whatever they want to when it comes to marijuana. I raised this question yesterday and at the White House and asking whether or not, in light of this editorial, in light of the fact that 2 states have now legalized marijuana, and some 35 states have either allowed for the medical use of marijuana or to relax the punishments for marijuana, in other words, to decriminalize it. In light of that, is the White House ready to change its policy and support ending this prohibition? Sadly, I believe the White House said no, they still think marijuana is a dangerous substance, even though they will let Colorado and Washington handle it differently. So we and the New York Times is out again this morning saying that they should, giving even more reasons why we should relax that prohibition. We're going to, one of our guests, our first guest, has arrived.
She made it in.
Made it in somehow through the firemen, the fire trucks, the hoses out front, or whatever's going on with this fire alarm. So we'll take a quick break and then talk to Sheila Krumholz from the Center for Responsive Politics.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Aww. You should pick that up. such a dork, loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look. Your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach
likes
your
you.
kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Here at the GED Pep Talk Center, we have pep talkers standing by to get you motivated for your GED diploma. Text the name Terry to 69222 for a sympathetic pep talk.
You show people what you really are.
Or for a gentle pep talk, text the name Deborah.
You know you're going to make people very proud of you.
And if that's not enough, text the name Danny for an extreme pep talk.
Prove everyone wrong. Show them you're the boss.
Get your GED pep talk and find free GED classes. Text the name of the person you want a pep talk from to 69222.
Did you see the world differently? Did you celebrate the victory?
So today, I state clearly and with conviction America's commitment to seek the peace and security of a world without nuclear weapons.
Did you stand up against our greatest threat? Change the world.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
Okay, 19 minutes after the hour, and we are still here. The building hasn't burned up yet, neither have we, and the fire department was kind enough to allow our guest in the building. Sheila Krumholz is the executive director of the Center for Responsive Politics. That's the organization that everybody in the media turns to when you want to know exactly what's going on with all this big spending in politics today. And there are more PACs and more big money, I think, than ever before. Sheila, thanks for coming in. It's nice to see you.
My pleasure.
It is true, right? We've never seen this much. They're going to spend more money in congressional races. It seems that every election cycle we say that.
Right. There's a 2 steps forward, 1 step back quality to the spending typically because we're looking at a presidential cycle versus a midterm. So we see an inexorable climb, from midterm to midterm and from presidential cycle to presidential cycle. In fact, the outside spending this cycle may match what was spent last cycle, which is extraordinary given the enormous resources delivered to the presidential race.
Right. So that normally you would have be a little less in the midterms, right?
Right.
You use the phrase, and that's the key thing, outside spending. What do we mean by outside spending, and why has that suddenly mushroomed?
Yeah, it's a little vague, but usually outside spending refers to spending by outside and ostensibly independent groups. So these are super PACs and politically active nonprofits. In the last cycle, people remember Restore Our Future was Mitt Romney's super PAC, and Priorities USA was Barack Obama's super PAC. And there were lots and lots of quote-unquote social welfare organizations, tax-exempt nonprofits, which are purportedly out there to promote the social welfare, but in fact often are very, very politically active.
And they would include the Karl Rove PAC? Is that...
Karl Rove. See, this is interesting that many of these groups have one of each.
Yes.
So super PAC and social welfare. And so Karl Rove had both, and Ted Gillespie and others who organized that, had American Crossroads was the super PAC, and then Crossroads GPS was the associated nonprofit.
And the Koch brothers?
The Koch brothers have partially funded and helped organize the largest network of all of these interrelated organizations, super PACs and nonprofits, C4s and 501c6s, which are ostensibly business associations organized to promote business. But again, many of these organizations have popped up since the Citizens United decision to take advantage of the new latitude and laxity in oversight of these nonprofits, which are very, very aggressively focused on elections.
So when we say outside, we really mean, if people can think of that as this is not the campaign money, this is not the political party money, this is not like the Democratic Central Campaign Committee or the Democratic Senate Campaign Committee. These are outside groups, but they're coming into these elections and supporting candidates for the most part, right? And
right. They're
also
spending on behalf of or against the candidates, and in fact, the parties also run, kind of incredibly to me and many, they also run outside expenditures, independent of the campaigns that they fund, that they coordinate with. So they have, for many years, I think, kind of have this pretend game of having a firewall between their operations, allowing them to run independent expenditures. So in our calculations for outside spending, which already this cycle are 3 times more than the 2010 midterm election cycle, there is party money included. You can exclude that to get a better sense of the truly independent organization.
So is it more, what's the ratio between outside money and inside money?
Oh, the outside money makes up a very small percentage relative to all of the expenditures devoted to campaigns and parties and PACs. And so it's a tiny fraction, except that when you get into the really, truly competitive races, that's where they make their mark and can have a determinative effect on those races and ultimately on the Senate or House majority.
How much money are we talking about that's going to be spent in this year's congressional races?
Well, last cycle, we tallied $6.3 billion spent for all federal elections, including all of this outside spending.
2012?
Now, that's the presidential cycle.
Yeah, 2012?
$6.3 billion.
$6.3 billion?
And so I would expect that it would be north of $5 billion. But again, there should be a step down from the presidential cycle. And we'll see. I think, again, a lot of this growth is going to be seen in these outside groups, which are so effective at determining the message in these key races.
And do people, so they're spending their money basically on TV ads. That's what we're talking about, right?
Mostly TV ads, but of course independent expenditures can be devoted to mailers, which can also be a kind of 1-2 punch with TV campaigns, TV ad campaigns, and research and phone banks and push polling, etc.
Do people know who's paying for these ads?
No, and that's our key concern, is that they're so secretive. They don't have to, the politically active nonprofits at least, do not have to disclose where the money is coming from. So we don't know who's behind the messages and what their motivations are, because it may be that, and as we just reported yesterday on opensecrets.org, that there are groups that are, for instance, based in Ohio that are spending big in Georgia and Illinois, ostensibly independently, but have deep connections through political operatives.
OpenSecrets.org. I hope you heard that. That is that's the website for the Center for Responsive Politics, and where you can find out and follow the money, as they say. So, what's the? I mean, people are really turned off. Don't you find average people are just turned off by all this money in politics? Does it get to the? What's the answer? I guess is where I'm getting at. Does it get to the point where they're just spending so much money? People don't pay any attention anymore, or do we need a constitutional amendment or congressional legislation or a different Supreme Court? What's the answer?
I think there's been a lot of cynicism for a long time about money's influence in politics. I think it's grown tremendously since
the influence United. Or the cynicism?
The cynicism has grown about the influence, and the money has grown. The cynicism is connected to the money. So. But the good news is that people across the ideological spectrum, this isn't just a Democratic issue or a liberal issue. There are groups from the far left to the far right that are concerned that money is driving the action in Washington and in our elections. And if we don't even know who's spending the money, we can't consider the source. We can't make informed judgments at the ballot box in our own political engagement.
And so, again, how can we kind of turn the tide, or can we?
Well, I think we can. Of course, we did in the 70s after Watergate. There was a scandal that brought the nation together to back tough reforms that created the Federal Election Commission. That has been allowed to kind of wither on the vine. So we need, I think, for people to come together again. It may take another significant scandal to do that, but there are lots of other suggestions, ideas afoot, constitutional amendments, et cetera. At the center, we don't support or endorse or promote any specific kind of reform other than transparency. That is the one, other than the research, the only advocacy that we take on is disclosure and transparency so that our research can be, trusted, our numbers are unassailable and credible, and we don't have kind of a horse in that race. So
at least when you look at the spot, you should be able to know who's behind it, and then maybe based on that, you trust it or you don't trust it.
Well, that was the purpose for creating the Federal Election Commission, so that there was a public receptacle, a resource for people to see, so that it wasn't bags full of cash dumped in phone booths, as we had in the 70s, right before the limits took place or went into effect. So people can know where the money's coming from, but now with Citizens United and other court cases, there has been an opening, and the money is just gushing through it.
It just seems to me, the more money, I think a lot of people feel this way, the more money you see pouring in, the less maybe an average vote counts, or the less confidence people have in the political system, which is sad. But you do a great job putting this information out there. Sorry we're out of time, but thank you so much for coming in. Again, it's opensecrets.org.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
Eye cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan, big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right, at 33 minutes after the hour, The Bill Press Show coming to you live from our nation's capital, our studio on Capitol Hill, brought to you today by AFSCME. You know, the good men and women of AFSCME, the largest public employee and healthcare workers union in the entire country. I was at their headquarters yesterday with President Lee Saunders, and you can find out more about their great work at afscme.org, AFSCME.org. I think AFSCME had something to do with Madison, Wisconsin. I think they started
and created. I did a paper in college, my labor history class. I did a paper on the history of AFSCME. So
yeah, I just thought of it while I was mentioning that.
Perfect
because
timing. I know
in studio with us, the Congressman from Madison,
Wonder
Wisconsin.
what other things you know about me from college. I'm a little worried.
Congressman Mark Pocan. Nice to see you, Congressman. Yeah,
good to see you again.
So look, you've got 2.5 days. You're going to get anything done before you leave town this week? How about?
Well, we are Congress, right? Now, just you got to set that bar.
Okay, all right.
Out first.
So we lower our expectations on the border. Seriously, serious problem, serious crisis, humanitarian crisis. Is it possible the Congress would walk away without doing anything?
Well, with this Congress, anything is possible. But, I think most people in the country, real people, understand that this is more about a refugee situation.
Yeah.
But, in my state of Wisconsin, the current speaker, who's actually a friend of mine, a Republican, but he and 3 other people put out a letter saying, hey, don't send anyone to Wisconsin. Like, there's this incredibly backward thinking out there. I was talking to Dan Kildee from Michigan, and he said there was a site that they're going to have some people come up to in his district, and there was a rally against it with people carrying their guns, on the outside again, because that's the new thing that everyone does, not just in Texas.
Well, they're afraid of these 5-year-old children,
yes,
right? Yeah.
Yes. And so, it's there's a lot of wrong information out there, but this is a very real situation, and I think hopefully this is something Congress can get done. You'd expect. I mean, this is important that we should be able to get it done.
Temporary relief,
Absolutely,
and then come
absolutely.
back and debate what ought to be happening with that 2008 bill or something.
Exactly.
But at least send some funds down there to deal with these kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about the one area, the glimmer of hope that I see is with the Veterans Administration.
Yeah, and once again, Bernie Sanders deserves a lot of credit for what he helped to do and put together, I think, a very reasonable compromise. And, a lot of us were concerned that when all this rhetoric came out there, this provided a window for the crazies to say, oh, we got to privatize all these services and everything, when the VA is one of the best, run overall concepts. It's just we have this problem with how right now by regions what's happening in some specific regions, but it's a good delivery of healthcare if we can fix the problems they're having on scheduling and some other issues. And we didn't want to see it dismantled in the effort to try to fix it.
Yeah, right.
And I think this is a good solution, and I'm hoping that this can move forward. But even the original bill, when it went through the Senate, I think only 3 people voted against it. One being my senator, Ron Johnson from Wisconsin. But I think almost everyone hears this in their district. I think this is a bar that even Congress can pass.
Yeah, but it looks like the possibility of getting together Bernie Sanders and Jeff Miller from Florida, with it, there's time to get it to the president's desk by the end of the week.
I would hope so. I would think that this is one of those bars that if we don't do, we deserve all the cajoling when we get back home.
Yesterday, a very important decision with the Fourth Circuit in Virginia, saying that overturning Virginia's constitutional ban on same-sex marriage. So 19 states now recognize marriage equality, and I think with Virginia, it's like 15 states now where judges have ruled, and some of those cases are all being appealed, and eventually maybe end up at the Supreme Court. Do you think it would happen this fast?
No, in fact, Wisconsin had the same situation that happened in Virginia a couple months ago, and we have one of those ugly, constitutional amendments. And just a couple months prior, some friends of mine, a lesbian couple, were asking, they go, when do you think this will happen? Because they were trying to make some plans to actually have a nice big wedding. And I'm like, a couple years, I'm guessing. And then a couple months later in Wisconsin, the same thing that happened in Virginia happened. So this is moving really fast. It's right because the Constitution is the Constitution, so I'm glad the states are moving in this way. 19 states and the District of Columbia, as you said, completely legal. Another 15 states now where no state yet has lost on when they go to the court and someone tries to hold it up like you're having in those states. So, this is all the right direction. My only fear is that, people forget some of the other things that we need to deal with, like employment non-discrimination. So we're also happy Michael Sam is, drafted into the NFL, but in many states across the country, he can be fired simply for who he loves. There's still a lot of other things, bullying in schools and other issues we need to deal with as well, but this is big. This is extremely positive. And I give a lot of kudos to the president because I think a lot of his actions in his term in office have helped for all this to happen. And
it was only 10 years ago, as we remember, that there were, including in Wisconsin, these 11 constitutional amendments on the ballot
2006
as a way of getting the base out to reelect George W. Bush, and every one of them passed, and now here we are 10 years later, every one of them struck down as unconstitutional.
Yeah, and what was interesting, in 2006 when they did that in
Wisconsin,
Wisconsin,
off and convince people to vote for something that was on the face of it unconstitutional.
But you know what really blew up for them back home in Wisconsin when we had that constitutional amendment? They all thought, it's going to bring all these conservative voters out. In the legislature, I served in the assembly, we picked up 5 legislative seats where there was a college district, where it was a college campus, because young voters, regardless if you're a Democrat, Republican, Independent, it's like 80% support marriage equality. So again, this is another one of those issues where, Scott Walker is trying to have it both ways on this. In one hand, he's trying to say it's not an issue the Republican Party's pushing, but then he joins our Attorney General when they try to stay our law. He is talking literally out of 2 sides of his mouth on this issue, because when he's running for president, he's trying to decide which is the right side. Do you appeal to that very small portion of the Republican Party where this is an important issue, or do you appeal to the general public, which says, no, marriage equality's time is here and we should accept it?
I have a column in the Hill newspaper this morning, which you'll have a chance to see when you get to your office, about two issues which are moving very, very fast, where public opinion has changed dramatically. The first one is the one we've been talking about, where I think the vast majority of Americans now recognize and support a marriage equality. The other is the either relaxation of the penalties for possession of marijuana or legalization. And only 2 states, if you know, have legalized so far, but 35 states have either medical marijuana or decriminalized, as we did here in 35 states, plus the District of Columbia. So the New York Times, Congressman, yesterday, Sunday, and today are editorializing for Congress to lift the prohibition on marijuana that's been in place for 44 years. Is that something you could support?
Oh, of course. When I was back, again, in the legislature in Wisconsin, the medical marijuana bill was my bill for a very long time back home. And again, this is the exact same sort of issue where the polling on it in Wisconsin was like over 80%. People wanted medical marijuana. This is one where the public is so far ahead of the so-called leaders. And I think we're finally catching up. But there have been a couple test votes in Congress where when it comes to this issue, Democrats and enough Republicans have joined together, and we've been able to do that. So, I'm hopeful that we can continue moving in that direction.
The House passed a bill this year on not decriminalizing, but moving marijuana from the most dangerous form of substance down. I forget the categories.
How it's categorized. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's going to take longer, but and by the way, just to be clear, to end the prohibition means then it doesn't mean that marijuana would be legal nationwide. It means every state would decide what the laws and
we still have this piecework of laws where even in Washington and Colorado, what do you do with your money from your legal business? Because we still have these antiquated laws around the banking. So there's a lot to take care of in this area. But again, this is one where the public, when you get to 80% level on the public, we probably should be listening, and I think this is an issue whose time is more than come.
One of the other issues that you've been working on and hope to get something done here this year is on tax relief for students with their student loans.
Yeah,
how does that work?
I think finally people are looking at the student debt. We've reached $1.2 trillion, the second of all types of debt in the country. In the last just over a decade, student debt's quadrupled in this country. So we're looming at almost looking like what we did at the housing bubble. All of a sudden, you're going to have this situation where people are going to be constantly paying back that debt and not buying new cars and not buying homes, and it's a real problem. So there's been a number of talks about interest rates, and we've not had much success there. We've tried to talk about being able to refinance student loans. That's one tool. But a new tool that we're introducing, Representative Frederica Wilson from Florida and myself are putting out there is a bill to deal specifically with underwater student borrowers. It's the Underwater Student Borrowers Relief Act, where a lot of people, about 1.4 million in one program and about 200,000 in another program, have entered these income-based repayment or pay-as-you-earn programs so that you can pay based on a portion of your salary.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about right.
Yeah, and you pay, depending on the program, it's, I think, 10 to 15% of your salary you put into, so it's a significant portion going into paying back debt.
Sure.
The problem is because we're watching this debt increase so much just in recent years, people could be paying it back for 10 or 20 years, and then at the end, while the debt is forgiven, they get this, whatever was written off is now considered income in this huge bill for taxes. And a good example, just to give you, and this was from the New York Times, the Office of Management, OMB, suggested that 400,000 borrowers in the next decade will begin with an average loan balance of $39,500, and after paying this for 10 years, they'll leave with a forgiveness of $41,000. So in other words, the amount is greater than what they originally borrowed, and then that'll be instantly due into the tax portion of that bill. And again, it's part of the problem we have with affordability. If someone is making good money, they'll be paying that loan back and paying it back even faster. But if someone's not, either for a bad economy or because maybe they're going into social work or teaching or something where they're not making as much, but they're doing a great service, and there's specific programs for people in public service, but other jobs where they're doing that, we think it'd be good to be able to make sure that that debt at the end is truly forgiven and doesn't have an income tax burden at the end of it.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense to me. So you're just replacing one kind of debt with another.
Well, exactly. Yeah. And then all of a sudden you have this bill due, and you're going to be instantly owing $14,000 in taxes, I think is one of the average figures we try to kind of figure out on this. And who has all of a sudden $14,000 extra dollars to pay at the end of paying for 10 or 20 years of paying your student loan back? I mean, that's when I was in school. I graduated in 1986. I left with about $5,000 in debt, and I worked in college, and I got some grants and some loans. But people paid back in 5 years. Now you're really 20 years. Well, that's almost like a home loan at that point.
A $5,000.
It really is like a home loan.
Yeah, it is.
College loans are a lot like a home loan. That's
a
really good
a $5,000 student loan is nothing today. I mean, the debts that most students, I think it's like $25,000, maybe the average or something.
Yeah, I think
today.
in the University of Wisconsin, it's something like $26,000. I think the national average is around $31,000 now. So it's a lot of debt. But if you start taking this into these programs, then you pay for 10 or 20 years, and then it comes back to more than what you originally borrowed. Suddenly you're going to pay as a forgiven debt amount. That doesn't make a lot of sense.
No, it's to say you have the one debt and you replace it with a debt on taxes. I mean, it reminds me of that old saw what happened when the midwife married the undertaker. They get you coming and going.
Right. Yes.
Congressman Mark Pocan here with us in studio. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
So this is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing down, I want you to just push the area.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
10 minutes before the top of the hour, visiting with Congressman Mark Pocan from Wisconsin's 2nd Congressional District. Congressman, a footnote on the student relief bill, or the underwater relief bill, whatever the official name of it is. So this is going to be introduced today, you were saying? Or,
I believe either today or for sure this week that we're putting it out there. And in fact, the Washington Post, just in a series of 3 or 4 recommendations on student debt, this was one of their recommendations. They just put an editorial out recently. I think people are just realizing that we need to deal with this in a real serious way.
Absolutely. As you mentioned, it is the number 2 highest form of debt, I think, in the country today, right? Now, and you sort of alluded to my next question, which would be Senator Elizabeth Warren, and I think it's the congressman you just mentioned, Dan Kildee from Michigan, I believe, is the House co-sponsor of allowing students to refinance their debt.
It's John Tierney from Massachusetts.
No, John Tierney. I knew it was one of our frequent guests in the studio. No, John Tierney. Thank you. Right. The 2 from Massachusetts, right? Yeah. Now, of allowing students to refinance their debt, just like we can do for a home mortgage debt, right? Your bill does not contradict that, right?
No, in fact, we had the first bill back 2 years ago we put out on this, or not 2 years ago, but I guess the fall of 13, we put out a bill that you could refinance at the lowest available rate. Since then, Senator Warren and also Senator Gillibrand each have another type of bill around that. The good news is we're all talking about it, and when we had the budget bill before the Budget Committee this year in the House, one of the 16 amendments the Democrats did was this, to talk about allowing to refinance. So this is one of the package of things that we can do, because you can help people to be able to lower your rate when you're paying it back. You can help people forgive it who are doing this basis on what they can afford. I still think the hole that we haven't dealt with, we need to come back to, is this lowering rates, period, because that deal that happened back in 13 was, I think, a terrible deal, because now we're watching the rates go up again into more and more, and it's going to keep spiraling those costs
and
up.
Another piece of it, which we don't have time to talk about, is doing something about escalating cost of tuition as well, and we'll get that under control. But I have to ask you before you go, the governor's race in Wisconsin, Scott Walker up for re-election. How's it going?
Well, I'm really, really happy. So that means Scott Walker's probably not.
All right.
The last,
then I'm happy too.
Yeah, man. The last big poll that came out last week, the Marquette poll that a lot of us watched just to see the differences in tracking, had Scott Walker up by only 1 point among registered voters, but losing by 1 point among likely voters. And that was the first time we've seen that. So clearly the momentum has been building on the Democrat candidate, Mary Burke. Mary Burke is part of the Trek Bike family. She was our Secretary of Commerce under Governor Jim Doyle. She's a Madison School Board member currently. She's a very philanthropic member of our community, a very smart, savvy person, and she's running a very good race. And Scott Walker is so busy running for president that he's really kind of ignoring things back home. And between that and he's on his second John Doe investigation, people in Wisconsin will forgive you maybe during your first one. They'll give you the benefit of the doubt. But on your second one, it's a little harder to get the benefit of the doubt. Yeah. And he's in that phase right now. So I think there's some real potential.
So this race, and for an incumbent governor at this point to be in that position, we're basically tied with this challenger. Not good.
Well, and the only reason he's even looked at nationally for president is he survived a recall. But what you have to understand about Wisconsin is, we are a fundamentally nice people, and a recall is not nice. Yeah. And he won because of that. But the same day of the recall, the exit polls had Barack Obama up 7 points. So it wasn't like people think Scott Walker is anything, great. It's just that we're nice, and we're going to get rid of him this fall rather than through a recall.
Good. Well, stop being so nice and be mean and get rid of him.
We're trying.
All right. Hey, Congressman, great to see you.
Great to see you,
Bill.
Thanks
so much for coming in. I'll be back with a quick parting shot.
This is the Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case, turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says the business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning if you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
The Parting Shot with Bill Press. This is The Bill Press Show.
Well, you know, someday we're going to look back on the prohibition against same-sex marriage in so many states and ask, why were we so dumb? And why did it take so long? What's the big deal? Indeed, more and more Americans are asking that question every day, as we just talked about with Congressman Mark Pocan. Virginia yesterday became the latest state where a federal judge ruled that the state's ban against same-sex marriage was unconstitutional. Massachusetts was the first in May 2004. Today, either by legislation or court order, marriage equality is the law of the land in 19 states. It won't be long before it is the law of the land in all 50. And every state will accept the fact that every American, gay or straight, should be free to marry the one he or she loves. Back tomorrow with Senator Tom Harkin. Have a great day.
Bill Press Show.
We'll see you then.